Hi, I'm Jonathan Sim. I'm a philosopher and I've used computational tools in my research from time to time. In this series of video lectures, I'm going to share with you some of the computational tools that you can use in your studies or work. These are tools that scholars in the digital humanities and computational social science use. I like to begin by talking about text data mining and its methodological difficulties. Text data mining can be used in a variety of circumstances. We can use it to analyze sentiments of a report or what people say online or in polls. We can also use text data mining to study cultural trends across time. For example, if I want to know when the word sushi became mainstream in the English language books, I can rely on text data mining to show me the number of times the word sushi appears in books. Did you know that Google has a nifty tool that will allow you to do just that? It's called Google Books Ngram Viewer. You just type in a word and it will go through all the books in its collection to give you the statistics. As you can see, what's really interesting about this is that the appearance of the word sushi rises exponentially in the 1980s. This in fact correlates with the time Japan launched its Cool Japan campaign to promote its culture and soft power all over the world. If you notice, this nifty tool that Google Books has is known as an Ngram Viewer. Now, what on earth is an Ngram? Well, Ngram is this very cool computational tool that you can use to study sentiments or to study patterns that occurs in text, documents, and books. Here's an example of how Ngram works. We have a statement. This is a sentence. We can take it and break it down into individual tokens or grams. Why is it called an Ngram? Well, because we can set the value of n. If n is equals to 1, then it is what we call a unigram, and we will break down the sentence into individual words and count their occurrence. So this has a count of 1 because it appears once. This is count of 1, a count of 1, sentence, count of 1. Yeah? That's how we count the number of times sushi appears. But sometimes we need to search for a phrase rather than a word. So in which case, we can up the number of n from 1 to 2, and that will give us a bigram. So going back to our statement, this is a sentence, we can break it down into 2-word tokens. This is, which appears once, is a, appears once as well, a sentence, appears once as well. Now, of course, this example is pretty lame, right? What are we trying to search for that's interesting? Suppose I want to study the occurrence of Star Wars in culture. Well, the word star and wars occurs far too many times. A unigram won't help me to find the term Star Wars at all. So what I'll need to do is to take a document or all the books that I have and break it down into these 2-word tokens or bigrams and count the number of times Star Wars occurs in order to count its frequency. Of course, we can continue to increase the value of n from 1 to 2 to 3. If n equals to 3, we call it a trigram. Here, we can take the same statement, this is a sentence, and break it down into 3-word tokens. This is a, is one, is a sentence, is another. But why would we want to use a trigram? Well, let's say for example, I want to search for the phrase hasta la vista. That is a 3-word phrase. It's not 1 word, not 2 words. So I need to use a trigram. And as you can see, the phrase was used very frequently since the 1990s. Why is that the case? Well, it was popularized by Arnold Schwarzenegger, who said, "Hasta la vista, baby," in a movie, Terminator. You should watch it if you haven't seen it before. But of course, there are some methodological problems when we're trying to count words or phrases using n-grams. Here's a really interesting example. If I want to search for the occurrence of the word bored in our English language books across history, I won't actually get a complete picture. People can express their sense of being bored as boredom or boring. So we have 3 different words for the same sentiment. Here's another example. The word drink can occur as drinks, drinking, drinker, drank, or drunk. If I tried to count the word drink alone, I will miss all the other variants. So what can I do? There is this method that is known as stemming, but what stemming does is that it takes all these variants and converts them to its original form, which is drink. But of course, there are many other methodological problems, some of which are more difficult to handle. Why? Well, in the first place, it's very difficult to compute intangible and qualitative things. So what makes it so difficult? We'll run through this example together and you see the problems. Ready? Let's pretend that you have a restaurant that's been running for a month and you have a website called yourrestaurantwebsite.com. And this website serves to collect all the customer reviews, whether it's good or bad. The only problem is that there is no thumbs up, thumbs down, or 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star, 5 star rating system. Your customers are only allowed to type in words. How do you quickly go through all this to count the number of good reviews or bad reviews? Well, for starters, let's try our first method, which is to count the number of times the word good appears and the number of times bad appears. What do you think? Would that work? Well, here's an example. The service is good. Well, that's +1 for a good review. Another review could say the food is bad, and then that's another +1 for a bad review. But consider this example. The waiter did a good job at making me angry. Now, this is actually a bad review. But if we go by counting of good and bad, then this gets counted as a good review. Something's wrong. Or how about this example? The manager is good for nothing. Again, the word good would get counted as a good review. But we know, you and I know, that there's something very bad about this statement. So there is something very wrong with method 1. It's highly problematic. Just going by good or bad alone is not good enough. How about method 2? Let's go through the reviews that our customers have left us, and we'll identify patterns in their reviews, and maybe we can use those patterns to count as good or bad. Sounds good? Well, let's see. Here's a sample of 5 good reviews. The food is delicious. The service is excellent. I had an incredible time here. Wow, the pasta is awesome. I love cake. This place serves cake. I'm happy. What do you notice is common between these 5? Well, there's a lot of positive adjectives and positive emotions. Let's look at bad reviews. Here's a sample of 5 bad reviews. The waiter gives me the creeps. I hated the soup. Terrible. I regret coming here. The service is poor. I waited so long for my meal. I felt miserable. Again, what's common between these 5? Is there a pattern? Yes, there is. These bad reviews have negative emotions, negative adjectives. So, it looks like we're onto something, right? Good reviews have positive adjectives and emotions. Bad reviews have negative adjectives and emotions. So shall we count all positive adjectives and emotions as good reviews and all negative adjectives and emotions as bad reviews? Are there any problems with this method? Well, the only way to find out is to test it. So here's an example. The food was incredible, but the service was awful. Oh, we have 1 positive adjective and 1 negative adjective. What do we do? Should we count it as 1 good review and 1 bad review? Well, okay, for the sake of discussion, let's say we'll do just that. But what happens if we encounter an example like this? The ambiance of the restaurant was amazing and the food was so great, but the wretched waiter left with my girlfriend. Oh my gosh! How will we deal with a review like this? Do we count it as 1 positive and 1 negative? Well, it's a bit hard to say, right? Because the last part of the sentence, it's so negative that it kind of negates all the positivity at the start. That's a problem, right? Should we count this whole thing as negative? Or consider this example. The restaurant looked dodgy and the waiter made me fear for my life. But the food was so heavenly, it left me desiring more. Again, the phrase that occurs after the but is so positive, it negates everything negative at the front. What do we do with this? So, method 2 is still quite problematic. I'm not here to fix the methodology for filtering good reviews and bad reviews. The point of this discussion was to demonstrate just how difficult it is to compute intangible and qualitative things. I'll leave you to think more about how you can refine a system like that. But then the question that we need to focus on is, what is a sound methodology? Now, to get you thinking more about sound methodology, let me introduce you to a study that's done in the area of the digital humanities. Here's the question, here's the research question. How do we track the rise of feminism in 18th to 21st century literature? Let's say that you have all the books, all the great works of literature from the 18th to 21st century digitized. They're all as text files that you can access and apply Ngram to count. What would you count? Well, here's what my friend did. He decided that he'll count the frequency of positive adjectives used on women. Now, his expectation is that as time went on, the frequency of positive adjectives would increase. Surprise, surprise! In reality, he found no increase or decrease at all. Of course, this study that my friend did made me cringe so much. I mean, there's so much more to feminism than just applying positive adjectives to women, right? So, how would you do it differently? Well, in the first place, what is the meaning of feminism? According to the Oxford English Dictionary, feminism is defined as the advocacy of women's rights on the ground of the equality of the sexes. So, based on this definition of feminism, how would you go about doing the study? How would you try to track the rise of feminism from the 18th to 21st century literature? Shall we perhaps count explicit discussions of gender equality? This is a very interesting approach, but it is very problematic because you don't find explicit discussions of gender equality in literature. You don't pick up a book on Harry Potter and find Harry Potter and the Chamber of Gender Equality. As admirable as this method may be, you wouldn't be very successful in getting much results. Or how about this alternative method? Let's count the number of times women are featured as the protagonists of the story. Now, this sounds really, really good. And in fact, if you look at some of the movies that we have recently, the lead characters are heroes and they are women. Is there a problem with this method? Possibly, yes. We can have, in the 18th to early 20th century literature, women who play a protagonist role but do not have gender equality. They may be depicted as people who are oppressed. So then we have this problem as well. So my challenge to you is this. How would you carry out this study? If you were the scholar researching the rise of feminism from the 18th to 21st century literature, how would you study? What method would you use? More importantly, how might your method be flawed? As I've said earlier, one of the problems with computing human and intangible things is that there is no perfect solution. So I'll leave you to think about it, and I'll see you again in our second lecture video.